Alright, YouTube, it's time to talk about the difference between the left and the new right. And I'm not talking about the neocons, the fake right like George W., John McLean, Lindsey Graham Cracker, and all these other goofballs that are in Congress. I'm talking about the new right, most of which are not within politics. Ron and Rand Paul, they count, I guess. That's sort of the first stage of the new right, the libertarian uprising prefaced before the various nationalists, nativism, populism, more libertarianism of various forms begins to truly amalgamate and rise up as a backlash to the far left. The old guard left doesn't care about the poor. If they cared, then when they realized that all of their bureaucracy and regulations weren't actually helping the poor, they would have changed their tactics and tried something new. But instead, they've continued to push the same tired lines that they've been using since the 1960s, which haven't actually lifted anybody out of poverty. Their trade deals destroy U.S. jobs. Their bureaucracy prevents upstarts and small businesses from flourishing. They've never tried to reform the tax code. They just up the tax rate. And they say, they up the business tax rate, say, oh, now the corporations will pay more. Well, no, they'll still use the same tax shelters to avoid paying anything. The small businesses and self-employed, though, they're going to pay that higher rate. Thank you very much. That's very helpful. It doesn't work. It keeps people impoverished. When the war on poverty began, poverty soared. When the war on drugs began, drug use soared. When prohibition began, alcoholism soared. All of these retarded interventionist plans with a lot of heavy-handed central government have failed utterly. They do the opposite of what they're supposed to do. When they say, oh, we're going to keep people safe with mass surveillance, and this is a neocon and neolib plan, by the way, they all support it across the board, it means we're going to be less safe. When they say we're going to start a war in order to improve our national security, it makes us less secure. The rise of ISIS is prefaced on our wars abroad. The rise of Al-Qaeda was prefaced on our intervention in South Asia, in Afghanistan specifically. Our intervention in Iran and Iraq throughout time destabilized both states, made them far worse. Now we talk about them being part of the axis of evil after we overthrew their government several times. So these are the problems of neoliberals and neoconservatives. Insofar as the poor or the working and middle class go, most of them don't even know what it's like to be in those classes. W comes out, pretends to be, total Texas cowboy. I got a strategery to deal with them nuclear Arabs over there. He's not even a Texan. He's from Connecticut. He's a blue-blooded Yankee from New England, very rich, old money family, who went down there and bought a ranch and pretends to be a Texan. He's not a working-class American, has nothing in common with working-class Americans. His cute little shtick that he does when he's out in public about not knowing how things operate to look like a dumbass is just a cover for the fact that he's actually really sly and corrupt. But he'd prefer to look like a harmless, bumbling idiot. Joe Biden does this too. They prefer to look like they're dumb than to look like the corrupt idiots that they really are. They're not idiots in the sense of being morons. They're idiots in the sense of, oh, I've got no clue what I'm doing here as far as trying to help people. I'm just going to embezzle more money and centralize government further because it's worked so well for the last century. It's really lifted a lot of people out of poverty. No, it doesn't. And that's the problem. The left continues to push the same crap. The Al Sharptons of the left continue to push the same tired race narrative that they've always used that's never actually improved the lives of minority communities. If anything, they've gotten far worse because of unions, because of pensions, because of heavy-handed leftist policies. It's making them crumble. They're falling apart. You look at Detroit, you look at Flint, you look at St. Louis and some of these areas. They're the ones suffering because of your policies. And supposedly the Al Sharptons, they support these communities. They go out and they talk to some black business owner. Oh yeah, we're gonna try to help this community. We're gonna try to help the street, and they never do. That business ends up going under because of all the taxes that they levy against them. Some local tax and a state tax and a federal tax and a business tax and this other tax, and you have to follow these 10,000 regulations. So you better hire an army of lawyers. Yeah, that family-owned barbershop is really good. That small restaurant, they're really going to be able to do that. They can really hire 2 or 3 full-time lawyers and several accountants to cook their taxes to make sure they don't have to pay that sky-high rate. Yeah, I'm sure that it works that way for the average American. No, it doesn't. It helps corporations, the same people that bankroll Democratic and liberal campaigns. Same as neocons. They're owned by the same people. Goldman Sachs funded Romney the same as it funded Hillary Clinton. They don't have a political axe to grind because the politicians are exactly the same. They come from the same class of people. They're all rich. They don't know what it's like to be poor. But the new right does. All these various figures in the new right know what it's like, in most cases, to be in the lower middle class. I know what it's like to be in both. I was born into the lower class. I'm in the middle class now, generally speaking. My income is commensurate with a middle class income. But I also know what it's like to be very poor. I know what it's like to worry about student loan debt and things like that. Because for years and years, that was my reality. I'm rising above that now through my own efforts here, through my literary endeavors, through YouTubing and so forth, and it's working quite well. I'm very appreciative. And I'm fully aware of the fact that very, very few people are so lucky. Very, very few people get that advantage because of so much central government. Because if you want to branch out into social media and you want to make money through those various endeavors, there's a chance you can do that. But try being an entrepreneur in a more physical field where you need to invest more. Good luck getting a loan right now in our fiscal situation here in the United States. Good luck getting student loan debt relief. Good luck getting anything, honestly, from Uncle Sam. You're not going to get it because Uncle Sam would rather give all of its money to corporate entities. Like Obama throwing hundreds of millions of dollars to banks to bail them out for no reason. Should have just let them go under. Hundreds of billions of dollars wasted, propping up failing fiscal endeavors for no reason whatsoever. Those are their backers. Those are the ones that fund their campaigns. Of course, they're going to bail them out. And they're using your money to do it. They tax you. They tax the small business. They tax the farmer. They tax the working class. They tax the middle class. Corporations, oh, we don't need their money. We'll let them keep using the complicated tax code to take so many deductions that they pay little to nothing. Meanwhile, that small business over there, they're paying 45%. That entrepreneur's paying 50% because of all the taxes when they're cobbled together. And they have to follow regulations more strictly. They can't work their way around it by hiring an army of lawyers. The old guard left and the neocons don't care about you. They don't care. Unless you happen to be a multimillionaire, they don't care at all. And even then, unless you're actually bankrolling their campaign, they probably don't care that much about you either. Even if you're wealthy. You're like a brain surgeon. You pull in $500,000 a year. You're not wealthy compared to them. You're just as impoverished as the average workaday 9-to-5 minimum wage serf. You're exactly the same to them. They're so fantastically wealthy that you're both the same on an absolute scale. Your wealth means nothing to them. Only business owners and bankers, multinational corporations and things like that, those are what matter to them. The new right's not that way. The figureheads rising up now. I say figureheads, not leaders. There will never be a leader of the new right, nor should there be. It should remain decentralized. These individuals, in many cases, come from the working class. And they know what it's like. The reason why they joined the new right and started speaking out for it against the neoliberals, neocons, and globalism in general is because they know what it's like to be screwed. It's like when we look at Eastern Europe. There's an interplay here. It's similar. You look at Western Europe, people are like, oh, communism's fine, socialism's fine, because they never had to exist under these systems. You look at Eastern Europe, they're all against it. They beat commies in the street still in places like Poland because they know what it's like to suffer under such regimes. Somebody who has never suffered under the workaday thing, who has never worried about, oh, if I lose my job, I'm going to end up homeless here, or at the very least living in a tin-roofed shack and on welfare. They don't know what it's like to be like that. Most of them at least were in the upper middle class when they entered politics. They went to Harvard or something. They had an old money family name, so they got their full scholarship to Harvard. And even though they dicked off and just had orgies and got drunk all day, they still passed with flying colors and got hired as a corporate lawyer or something and started making $2-3 million a year to work for Monsanto or Merrill Lynch or something like that. That's what happens. That's their life. That's their existence. So they don't really care if their policies don't help the poor. They don't care if their policies don't help some minority inner city ghetto community. They don't care if their policies destroy 100,000 working class jobs. They don't care if they destroy entire industries. It doesn't affect them. It means nothing to them. They don't have to worry about their children's future. They don't have to worry about their future. At a bare minimum, with the money they've got on hand, they can retire and at least live an upper middle class lifestyle for the rest of their life without having to worry. They don't care if they crash the whole economy. They don't care if World War III erupts. They're the one that's going to be in the bunker, so to speak. So that's their reality. They don't care about the poor, the working class, whatever. But the new right can show empathy, where the old guard establishment can only show sympathy or pretend it does. The new right is capable of showing empathy because it's rising up from those ranks of society. It's just like the media. The old guard media, the television media, those talking heads, they get high six-figure salaries, sometimes seven figures. They sign a book deal, they get $1 million. They produce a documentary, they get $1 million. They produce a miniseries, they get $1 million. They go on TV every week, they get a check for $500,000. That's their reality. They have the penthouse and the limousine, and they have the guards following them around to make sure nobody harasses them. That's their reality. That's the neocons and the neoliberals. That's why they're neocons and neolibs. They want to keep theirs. They don't want to have to share it with anybody else. They love a complicated tax code. They love screwing their smaller competitors with business tax rates and with regulations. They try all the time to apply it to the internet because now where are their major competitors, at least so far as the corporate media goes? But the new right, it's composed of people who slap a webcam on their laptop and start making videos on YouTube. Or they have a smartphone, they start making tweets. That's where your figureheads are coming from. Average Joe individuals in many cases. They're not rich. Some of them are. Some of them, they made investments, and they're millionaires or whatever, but they're few and far between compared with those who their paycheck is coming from Patreon or AdSense or something like that. A totally different ballgame. And because it's so much more efficient, they can actually manage to do that. I can manage to do that. I don't really have to worry about the higher tax rate from self-employed income. Because even then, I can still make ends meet. I can still get by, even if I'm not getting rich doing what I'm doing here. But them, they have to worry about all that efficiency in the corporate media and the establishment politicians we saw in the last campaign. Somebody privately funded their own campaign, was vastly outraised and outspent for most of its duration, namely Trump. And managed to win against somebody who had raised over $1 billion, primarily from corporate backers, from large banks, from multinational corporations with foreign loyalties, from lobbies that in many cases are foreigners and so forth. They just have a U.S. subsidiary funding it for them, which is totally dishonest and should be illegal, honestly, but that's where Clinton got most of her money. She got it from Saudi Arabia, from Qatar, from Israel, and places like that. She didn't get it from her own wallet. She didn't spend her own money. She spent other people's money, and they were all let down. We see their problem here, and that's why the new right is winning. It's why it's still rising under this current paradigm shift, because it's capable of showing empathy. We actually know what it's like to be in the working class, to actually know what it's like to have an average job or to worry about student loans. Can the neoliberals say that? Can the neocons say that? All these political figures, the talking heads? No, they're all rich. They either were born into wealth or they attained wealth. They can show sympathy or fake sympathy, but they can never show empathy. It is impossible for them to show empathy. It's impossible for them to understand how the average American lives. It's impossible for them to understand what it's like in small-town America. Obama had this problem. Obama looked at the graphs on a federal level, on a national level. He said, oh, recovery, yeah, more jobs being created. Yeah, the recession's over. That's great, Obama. But that recovery happened on the coasts and in big cities. It didn't happen in small-town America, especially in flyover America, especially in the Rust Belt. And that's why the Democrats lost this last time around. Because Clinton didn't even bother to pretend to care about these people. Oh, you care about the middle class, she says a couple of times. Trump, meanwhile, rambles and raves about how bad things are for the middle class, and people tuned in and they actually believed it. And he's right. He's not wrong. He's not lying to people. They never got a recovery. What the hell's how the hell is that a lie? It's true. You go to some of these communities. You come here to Rutland. Come see our mall. Come see some of the empty homes or the empty business fronts here. We never really got a recovery to the same extent as New York City or Los Angeles or something. It just never happened here. And we were hit less hard and in a less prolonged manner than many parts of the Rust Belt. And certainly many parts of these small-town flyover state areas. They got absolutely hammered. They got hurt a lot worse than us. And even here we kick out our liberal mayor, overwhelmingly, over a refugee issue that took a back seat to transparency. And that's the problem with the neocons, too. People don't like them. Nobody likes John McLean. I don't know why Arizona even reelected him. Maybe was his opponent a total dumbass? Yeah, probably just some neoliberal. Well, there's your problem. No, I would say like Rand and Ron Paul are two of the only people in an actual political position of power that are worth anything. Trump, I think, as well. Maybe Justin Amash. Then you've got some former politicians like Kucinich. They know what it's like to get a regular paycheck. Otherwise, they're looking at a bunch of rich people. They're totally out of touch. They've either been wealthy so long they forgot what it's like to be average, in the lower rungs of society, the upper middle class and below, basically 95% of the population. They either forgot or they never were there to begin with. They were born into wealth. They were born in a nice gated community hospital, and when little baby politician went home, little baby politician got the best brand name milk and the best brand, and when they were a toddler, they get the best brand name cereal, and the nanny and the butler to chauffeur them around in a little cart and stuff around their 100-acre mansion and stuff like that. And that's where they come from. They don't care about helping the poor. If they did, then they would try something different that would actually help them. Their neoliberal and neoconservative policies don't make us safer, they don't make us wealthier, and they never will. You can try it for 1,000 years, things will continue to get worse. And that's why they're losing. That's about all. Peace out.